Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. David Alexander here. And as you know by now, we have decided to not host an in-person gathering today on Sunday, January 12th, just out of an abundance of caution. I know by now the weather has gotten warmer. Most of the roads have melted and are clear, but we were concerned about patches of black ice overnight and even after the service if the temperatures drop while we're together. So out of an abundance of caution, we wanted everybody to stay safe and stay home and tune in to this broadcast this morning, which is a previous broadcasted Sunday service, and connect with each other online. So we hope that you stay warm, stay safe, and stay connected during this time. And as we gather together today, let us remember to, with every drop of snow that is melting from the trees and from the yards and in the roadways, that we are sending that blessing of water and that blessing of coolness to our family, to our neighbors, to our brothers and sisters and siblings in Southern California as they traverse all that they are traversing with the wildfires. We count our blessings this morning to be in our warm homes, to be gathered together, to be connecting online in this way. I'm looking forward to participating in the chat with you today and being connected. And let us just begin this day by remembering our blessings. And thank you so much for being a partner and committed to the message of this ministry as we continue this day. Enjoy the broadcast, and we'll chat with you online. Peace and blessings. Back to the Basics, Part 2. This is the first 4 chapters in the Science of Mind text written by Ernest Holmes. If you don't know who that cat is, look him up. He's kind of cool. And, you know, these first 4, the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it, set the paradigm of this thing we call, more broadly, New Thought, but in particular, religious science or the philosophy of the science of mind, which is the articulation that he gave to a broader movement that was all around him. And so, let me go back. Tools for today and for this series, the spiritual principle of just consciousness. We're looking at how consciousness works. When we talk today about how does it work, we're talking about consciousness. The spiritual law is freedom, as we discussed last week. He says on the first page of the first chapter that the divine plan is one of freedom, that liberation and freedom is the birthright of every living soul, the destiny of the journey that we are on as spiritual beings. And our spiritual practice is listening. to learn how the laws of consciousness work, but then lean into our own life, lean into spirit, lean into the ways in which the feedback loop is happening, such that we see the evidence of our life unfolding. It's always reflecting back to us the consciousness that we're giving to it. So listening is a very important spiritual practice, to be able to see and sense and intuit, right? Listening not just with the ears, but in all the ways, intuition and everything else that we do that. And so last week we said to know what God is, that is getting back to the basics. The study of the science mind is the study of first cause, spirit, mind, or that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff, he said with a capital S. Ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes. The power back of creation, the thing itself. And so today we look at that thing, that ultimate stuff, that infinite intelligence, that power back of all creation. How does it work? How does it work? How does it move and have its being? If we say that God is love, then what we're in essence asking, and when we ask this question, is how does love work? If we say that God is peace, then how does peace work? If we say that God is joy or harmony or happiness or wholeness or anything else that we would say, then how do those things work? And what we'll discover in the science mind is that God is in and through and as all things, and there's no other way that it can work except through us. Through you. It works through you. And it works through a set of principles, right? Spiritual law that we call it. And I like to remind people when they're first getting into this teaching is not personal, it's principle. Because if you'll be praying, you'll be affirming, you'll be doing your work, and you're like, I want my life to be better, I want my relationships to be better, I want my finances to be better, I want my health to be better, I want whatever it is that you're working on, right? And so you're using affirmations and meditation and positive thinking and all of this, my vibration and my frequency, and then something comes back at you that you weren't expecting, that didn't feel good or didn't reflect what you had been hoping, and you're thinking, well, how come that happened? I thought I did it right. And I'm a good person, and it's not personal. It's principle. It works through principle. And so that means a couple of things that are really, really important. It means that the principle is always responding to us, and that means that our growth it's not that we just have an insight one day, and then through that insight, everything shifts. The principle it takes time for us to practice the principle. It takes time for us to apply the principle. It takes time for us to learn all the ways in which we have been walking along life's trail, planting seeds behind us. And then one day we kind of turn a little bit and see that, oh, that's not the flower that I want. Anybody? Right? That's not the plant. That's not the whatever. Oh, and you say, oh, but your consciousness, okay, I get it. I planted it. Okay, well, let me dig that one up. I don't like that. And so now you think, well, now it should all change. But you got to look behind you and realize you've been walking for a long time. And you've been planting seeds for a long time. So it doesn't change overnight. It's not all of a sudden. Just because you found a good church, amen, somebody. Right? Just because you found a good teaching, just because you found something that works for you that wasn't fear-based or dogmatic or talked about sin or sent you to hell or, whatever, that suddenly it's all just going to be a bed of roses. Have you noticed? Right? There's still work to be done. There's still practice to be done. There's still deep inquiry and examination and cultivation. And so it's personal, it's principle, not personal, means that it doesn't play favorites either. It's not, well, yeah, I know you're a really good person, so I'm this one time. That's not how God works. But some of us have been trained into thinking that that's how God works. If we tithe, which is a very good thing to do, by the way, Right? But we're not gambling. This is not a slot machine for God. We're not like, well, let me just, put $1 in and pull the lever and see if I can get to heaven. Right? Which might be why there's less people here. I mean, I'm just going to call it out. Because there are still places that teach the slot machine God, and those places fill up. Anyway. But this means that this principle doesn't play favorites. It doesn't just say, well, I'm going to pick on these people because these are the chosen ones, or they really like these people, and therefore it's all going to work out. No, it works through principle, which means we have to be mindful at a level that perhaps we haven't yet been mindful in our life. Does that make sense? And so this mantra of liberation, whenever you feel like something is happening to you, that it's about you, you can remember that it's principle, not personal, to not take it personally. Except that we do, right? We always tend to take it personally. But this thing itself that we're talking about and the way that it works through principle is a conscious intelligence that responds by corresponding to the sum total of our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. It's responding to you. So that's important right there, what I just said. I kind of rambled through that really fast. The sum total. I'm going to slow that down a bit. The sum total. Right? Not just your thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. It's like, well, but it responds to my thinking. So if I think a positive thought today, like I said, all those planting seeds all along. How many years, days, weeks, whatever, lifetimes did we spend thinking a particular way about something? And then one day you have a positive thought about it, and you want it to all change because you've been told that it responds to your thinking. No, it responds to the sum total, the collective vibration, all the stuff that's happening in the subconscious. You ever tell yourself an affirmation, but then you got like a whole file folder of stuff that comes out of your subconscious that goes, yeah, but wait a second, hang on, we got some evidence about that. Why that's not true, or why you don't really believe that, or why you want. All that stuff has to get gone through too. Got to go through the file work, right? So it responds by corresponding to the sum total of our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. So it takes time to work through all of that. But ultimately, it works by appearing the way that we think it will. I'll say that again. Ultimately, the way that it works, the conscious intelligence of the universe, is that it works by appearing the way that we think it will. So if we think of God as loving, then it tends to appear as loving. If we think of the ultimate intelligence of the universe as fair and just, then it will tend to appear that way. If we think of it as mean and demeaning and judging and cruel and picking favorites, and then it will appear those ways. And so humanity, through millennia, has thought it in a very parental, abusive kind of language. You say, yeah, but in Genesis it says, or in the Bible it says, or for centuries people have been thinking, because they have been projecting out of their own anthropomorphic consciousness their worst fears onto God, and therefore it has been appearing the way that they think and expect that it will. Making sense? Let me say it this way. In page 37-ish of the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says, we're surrounded by an intelligent force and substance from which all things come, the ultimate essence in the invisible and subjective world, all visible and objective form and condition. So in other words, everything. It is around us in its original state and ready and willing to take form through the impulse of our creative beliefs. It works for us by flowing through us. This law we did not create. This law we cannot change. We can use it correctly only as we understand and use it according to its nature. This law we did not create. This law we cannot change. We can use it correctly only as we first understand its nature. As you understand it, you use it according to your understanding. And this little piece. I used this morning where I spoke, and I just love this piece. He says, and then, hence it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does. Only it does according to our belief that it won't. Woo! I don't know if you've had enough coffee yet to digest all of that right there. That is something, right? It's done unto you according to your belief. It follows that if we believe that it will not work, if you believe that life is not for you, if you believe that something is against you, if you believe that you're not worthy, if you believe that you don't deserve this, that, or the other, or whatever it is, if you believe that it will not work, then it really works by appearing to not work. And when you believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. You say, see, I told you so. I told you it wouldn't show up. I told you the universe wouldn't. I told you that affirmation wouldn't work. I told you that thing wouldn't work for my favor. I told you that it wouldn't work out, right? It appears to not work, but when it does, it's working according to your belief that it won't. Woo! I mean, you just close the textbook and walk away right there. I don't know if Ernest Holmes ever dropped the mic and walked off stage, but but if he could have, that would have been the moment to do it right there. You understand what I'm saying? It is done unto us according to our belief. And so it is beholden upon us then to lift our belief to the idea that God is all there is, that it is always working for us and through us and as us in our highest and best good. Now, that's not just sort of airy-fairy positive thinking. That is raising the vibrational standard so that we see something bigger than we are, and then we examine everything that's underneath it. Because, again, it doesn't work by favor. It's not just, well, you're thinking a high vibrational thought, so I'm going to give you all the good stuff. It's like, no, it works by principle. And if it works by principle, then you raising your vision, raising your mental capacity to see the greatest good happening in your life, to see the greatest good happening in the world, to see the greatest good happening for humanity is only the first step. That's the first part of the principle. That's the vision of the outcome. Then you actually have to go to work. You have to do the work. You have to examine the world of effects. You have to see what's really happening. You have to see the evidence that the world is showing you. And then say, what do I need to do to eradicate, to remove, to adjust, to respond to all of the evidence of pieces, all that files of stuff that is piled up there from the past, and get rid of it so that it is no longer operating in the collective subjective to work against the vision that I just set. Woo! It's a lot here. It's a lot. I know it is. It responds to us by corresponding to the sum total of our thoughts, attitudes, and belief. And then later, Ernest Holmes says, and so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. We are bound because we are first free. The power which appears to bind us is the only power in the universe which can free us. It's the power of consciousness. It's the power of our mind. It's the power of our thoughts. And so the formula is this, right? We set that vision. We set that standard. We say, this is the affirmation. This is what I want. This is what I hold for myself. This is the outcome I want in my relationships. This is the outcome I want in my career, my job. This is the outcome I want to see for the beloved community, for humanity. Whatever, big or small, it doesn't matter, right? If it's a particular project or thing that you're working on, your own life, your own relationship, your own health, or all of humanity. We set the vision. As we set the vision, then you begin to examine. All right, now, what is the world? Since the world and the universe is in a constant feedback loop, then it's showing me what my previous thoughts from yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before and the year before have been. They're showing me what I have thought back then. So I've set my vision for what I want, but I'm reaping today what I thought yesterday. Does that make sense? I'm reaping today what we have thought for 10 years. We're reaping today what we've thought for 100 years. We're reaping today what we have practiced and what we have been for 400 years, for 500 years. The collective consciousness of humanity is reaping today a lot of toxic old stuff. That's being nice about it, right? Ernest Holmes used capital S stuff to emphasize. I'm using stuff to be okay on the internet and not get shut down. We're reaping a lot of stuff, right? That we say, well, you and I we don't believe that. We don't want that. We don't want that for humanity. We don't want that condition to exist. We don't want racism and discrimination and all the phobias and environmental degradation and all of this toxic stuff that's happening. We don't want that. Who's believing in that? Well, humanity has for a very long time. And so the wheels have been set in motion, and those wheels are continuing to produce until we go back and we say, not just setting the vision, as Dr. King did for us, to set the vision, but then to go back and examine and say, now, where is all of these old ideas still producing results? How do we begin to go examining? Because all of the ills of the world, whether they're in our own individual life or in the collective life of humanity, are simply held there by thoughts behind them. If thoughts are things, if this thing works through principle, then everything that's in motion now is simply held in place by a thought behind it. And everything is shifted through a new thought through it. Does that understand? When we declare a thing, we establish that it will be so. And so we have to declare a new thing. We have to understand that the world is experiencing a cognitive dissonance every day between the world that we see projected every day and the one that we wish to affirm, to visualize, and to imagine. But the solution to this dissonance, the solution to this fractioning, so to speak, is not ignoring that the world as it is. It's not turning our heads and pretending that we don't see it. No, the solution is to enter the world as it is. It's to equip ourselves with our vision, of our affirmations, of our positive mindset, of our positive thinking, of our possibility thinking, to equip ourselves with that, and then to do what's necessary in the world to bring our vision forth. So the vision, then the examination, and then we say, now, what can I do about this particular thing right here? Because the evidence is showing me that that's a piece of the puzzle that's not working. So what can I do? What is my piece? So if you are, this is the way we do everything. If you want finances different in your life, you want relationship different in your life, health, etc., then you would set the vision. Then you would examine and say, okay, I see that every time person I'm in a relationship with says this, I react this way. I see that there it is. There's the evidence. There's the trigger. It's always been like that. Turns out that trigger, if you work with a practitioner, they'll go, okay, tell me the first time that, and every time that you did it, right? And you discover, oh, yeah, it's not just my partners. It's that's the way I reacted to my mother or to my father or to whatever, right? The trigger's old. It's been there it's a pattern that keeps popping up. Okay, so that's the examination period. Now action, what can I do? Well, what I can do is be more mindful, more conscious of that, and the next time that the potential environment is set for that trigger, I can stop myself and not get triggered. So now I've taken a positive action, and I can evaluate the results of that. Oh, what happens when I don't get triggered, when my partner does X, then they have a more positive experience, and we don't go spiraling down this. You see what I'm saying? Vision, the examination, the action, and then you evaluate. I put a new action in place, you evaluate the results, and you go right back to the vision. This has always been the way of transformation in New Thought. In every area of our personal expression, we teach the same thing. Doesn't matter if it's outside, external, social conditions, quote-unquote politics, or if it's the internal states of being. It's always the same formula. If you don't like your financial status, we say, arm yourself with a vision of prosperity. Then look at your world with honesty and go to work changing the habits, the thoughts, the practices that keep you in a lack mentality. Relationships, if you desire a shift or something new, arm yourself with the vision of your heart's desire. Hold it in contemplation and then pay attention to what arises in opposition. Examine those points of resistance. Challenge them. And there you'll find the gifts for manifesting more meaningful relationships.
What about health? Pattern's the same. Hold the vision of what you want. Go to work on the points of resistance in your mind. Healing, the healing of which makes the task of new habits, healthier habits, etc., easier because you've healed the resistance in your mind first, and then the habits replace and follow up with that, right? Transformation never comes through ignoring. It never comes through not paying attention. It never comes through turning away from, or what I call the spiritual practice of arrogance and privilege. Right? It always comes through embracing and moving in and looking. But sometimes when it comes to social conditions, the things that are not working for us on the collective stage of humanity, as Dr. King pointed out to us, the racism, the discrimination, the war, the militarization, all of those things that he worked on through the vision of the beloved community. Sometimes in New Thought circles, we like to say, well, but it's all about individual consciousness. We just need to work on our individual consciousness. And I think that individual consciousness is too easy a scapegoat for our collective responsibility in the public square. Here's the thing. There is no individual consciousness outside of the one. Can I say that again? There is no individual consciousness outside of the one. If God is all there is, then there's only one consciousness. It's God's consciousness happening through you and through you and through me and through you and through them. Multiple points of expression, but one consciousness. Therefore, everything that's happening is the evidence for what needs to be worked on, what needs to be worked out, what needs to be seen, what needs to be evaluated. The toddler that pulls on our pant leg and says, but daddy, 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 daddy. And no amount of turning from that and just paying attention to something else to say, oh, but I only do positive. I don't pay attention to whiny toddlers. I only do positive in my life. Right? I only focus on the positive things. I don't pay attention to those things that are nagging and poking and prodding and da-da-da. I don't pay attention to those things. No amount of turning away from that will make it go away until you go, oh, that's actually the evidence of where there's a need, where there's attention, where there's love. You see. The cry of individual consciousness is the scapegoat of our collective responsibility. But there is no individual consciousness outside of the one. When we understand that, we step into a collective responsibility of healing the planet by understanding the way it works, that it works the same in the public square as it does in my own individual life. Ernst Holmes says in The Science of Mind, he says, we must instill into the mind the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. That good is without bounds. Only good and loving kindness shall flow through me all the days of my life, Psalms 23. We must get this concept rather than continue to think that there is a power of evil as opposed to the power of good. We experience good and evil because we perceive a presence of duality rather than unity. But knowing that thing can work for us only as it works through us. Let us begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday. Let us know that we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. The time must come, he says, when we shall have left the apparent evil behind, and it shall be rolled up like the scrolls and numbered with the things that were once thought to be. But this happens through our work of the principles. It happens through our paying attention to the evidence and going to work on our own conscious mind and subconscious mind. And so we don't stop at our individual work. We don't stop at our individual consciousness. We continue to grow and grow in our awareness of our connection and our dependency within and through community. Our spiritual awakening must include a conscious awareness of the inextricable garment of destiny that Dr. King called us to. In the prophetic text of Joel in the Jewish tradition, it says that God will gather the nations and put them in the valley of judgment. And it says there he will judge the nations according to how they treated his people. it's a very interesting text, right? Because it says that the judgment of God doesn't happen through piety of individuals or the religiosity of a nation. It says that the judgment of God, or another word, I know we don't use the word judgment, the evaluation, the demonstration, the results, right? That the quote-unquote judgment is through how we have treated each other. In other words, God judges through our public policy, not our individual piety or our religiosity. What does that mean? It means we need to pay attention to our public policy. We need to pay attention to our collective experience. We need to pay attention to what is happening on the collective level. And so as we enter this Martin Luther King weekend, we would do well to remember that the public good is just as important as our individual good, right? That we are stronger every time we stand up for human dignity because it demonstrates our most basic principle, our oneness with the divine. That when we do so in the public sphere, it can seem divisive. It can appear as division, which is something that sometimes in New Thought circles we don't like. We don't like division. We're very passive people. We're very codependent people. We're very oh, we just want everybody to kumbaya and hold hands and it'll just all be nice. Let's not do anything that's divisive, right? Am I right? Right? But such a perception is a commonplace resistance to be expected when we're building new muscle. When you're building new muscle, resistance is part of the process. Resistance is what creates the strength. And so we welcome division and embrace it because the principle of love always dissolves every division. We affirm that engagement in what is quote-unquote political is not about taking sides, but rather is about taking stand. A stand where one is called for, a stand for love, a stand for dignity and greater compassion. We understand that the role, and when we understand how this principle works, that the role of the prophetic voice in faith community is not to be concerned with which side of the aisle, left or right, that it aligns with, but rather which side of humanity it lends a hand to, the enfranchised or the disenfranchised. A courageous voice of oneness in today's political landscape snatches from the jaws of political cannibalism those topics of human dignity that belong on the altar of humanity, not in the mouths of politicians. And so this thing works when it works for us, through us, and as us. It works for us when it works through us and as us. When we show up in our oneness for each other. Which is why it's so critical as we practice the principles, the laws of consciousness in our life, that we understand and ground ourselves in knowing why we're here. This is why I say some version of every week to understand that you're part of a liberation journey. Freedom is the divine destiny or the plan. The divine plan is one of freedom, as we said last week, right? That plan is ordained for all. Ernest Holmes said that emancipation from discord is the ultimate goal of life, emancipation from discord of every nature, and that goal is sure to be attained by all. Sure to be attained by all. That's emancipation or liberation or freedom from discord, from disconnection, from the dis-ease of thinking that we're separate from our good, separate from God, separate from the wholeness that is our divine right. And that goal, it's not just for you. It's sure to be attained by all. Wow. That's why the book that I'm writing, the book that's coming out, thank you, God, with the publisher now for design and layout, is called Attained by All. Attained by All, a case for New Thought Liberation Theology. Right? To articulate and to declare how it is that we stand in our oneness in a way that not only manifests our individual good, but allows us to embody that vision of the beloved community that Dr. King spoke of for the good of all humanity, that there is no place where your individual quest for freedom and good exists outside of the connection of all. Right? Try it. There's no island that you can stand on that is not connected to the issues of climate change. Right? You say, well, I'm going to go manifest my good. I'm going to pay attention to my consciousness because that's what this teaching is really all about. It's just about me and my consciousness and my good and doing my work. And if I do my work, and everybody else can do their work. And so I'm just going to focus on my work. So go get that island where you can just do your work and you have your own air and your own water, and that air we don't breathe, and that water we don't drink, and that land we don't touch, and that, right? Not going to happen because we're all on this planet together. We like to popularize the phrase that we're all in the same boat, but that's not really true. Some of us are on cruise ships. Some of us are in little dinghies. Some of us are in rowboats. We're all in the same ocean. But depending on what vessel you're in, you could have a very different experience. Right? So it's important that we understand this as we continue to work towards our liberation, as we continue to work towards our freedom, towards the emancipation of our own health and wholeness, that we are always connected to that work for others, that they're never separate. There's never, well, I'm just going to do my work. Your work is the work of all. The work of all is your work. They are interchangeable always in every regard. That's what Dr. King reminded us of and what we must keep in front of us. And so in the beginning of the book, if you allow me, I'm going to read you an excerpt. Would you like to hear an excerpt? Of my soon-to-be-published book? I'm so excited. All right. This is good because it'll help us wrap everything together today. I make the case in the beginning about why we're here to do this work, and then I say, so why are you here? And I say this: I am here to honor a movement that is grounded in the legacy of our founders' deep roots of consciousness and mystical understanding of universal truths. I am here to speak the prophetic truth of oneness into a divided world that is still in the grips of racism and white supremacy, in hopes that the clarion call of our divine nature shakes humanity awake. I'm here to affirm the divine potential within all humanity, knowing that our potential is rooted in our responsibility. I am here to awaken humanity to magnificence by living beyond division, by a vision that lives beyond division, yet does not hide from protecting and defending the most vulnerable among us. I'm here to share a generous love ethic that stands in solidarity with those on the margins without apology. I'm here to participate fully in building a world that works for everyone through the conscious recognition of the means and the ways in which the current structures do not work for many, are upheld by the consciousness behind them, and therefore must be dismantled through the application and the tools of conscious transformation. I'm here to walk in the radical honesty that is gritty, raw, spiritual work that requires shedding the protections of privilege and building authentic relationships with those in the trenches. I believe New Thought provides a powerful, liberative witness to the power within each one of us to radically change the world through personal and collective awakening. I believe that we are created in God's image and are therefore the vehicles through which God's wholeness is revealed. The moment we accept that responsibility, the moment we accept that truth is the moment that we accept the responsibility for any place in the world of effects where that wholeness is not revealing itself. I believe that oneness without responsibility is cheap privilege. I'll say that part again. I believe oneness without responsibility is cheap privilege. Because the moment you claim the power of the principle of oneness is the moment that you can no longer afford to separate yourself from the pain of the world. That's how oneness works. I believe that the banknote of oneness is cashed in acts of justice. And I believe that the law works for us by working through us and as us when we work it. Ashe. And so that's how it works. It works when we decide to find our voice, to make a clarion stand for your health, for your wealth, for your relationships, for your success in the world, for the vision that you have for your life, but also for humanity, for the good of all, for the planet, for the climate, for the animals, for the water, for the air, for the everything that you are connected to, because God is all that there is. And when you decide to make that call and that stand, then you set in motion the vision, the examination, the authentic action that is yours to take, and then evaluating the results, and then right back to the vision, and repeating this cycle over and over and over again until the greater good comes. That, my friends, is the way it works. Let's work it. Thank you. Thank you. So we're grateful, I'm grateful for all of the blessings that we receive as a spiritual community in the manifestation of our tithes and offerings and the support of you and the support of everybody online watching and participating throughout the week. We have checks that come in the mail. We have online giving that happens automatically. We have people participating from different states and regions and parts of the world, including all of us here in the room. If you're in the room and you have a cash or check, we have our receptacles by either door, and we have all the ways to give online, which I think we have. There we go. Make sure. Text to give, scan the QR code, whatever form it takes. And just take a moment to take a breath. As we're still very new in this new year, very grateful for all the year-end giving that occurred that allowed us. We got very, very close to our goal. I think about 21,000 of 25,000 that we set for our goal for year-end giving to help us kind of close the year strong and start the new year strong. Very grateful for all of that generous support. And now we get back to work. We go back to the daily grind of supporting spiritual community, doing the work personally, doing the work collectively, and creating a space where the work can happen, where people can gather, and people can come in, and people can join, and people can discover for the first time a place that holds these principles dear, holds a space of love and inclusion for all of God's family. So I'm grateful for all of the ways in which our dollars, our work, our support contribute to that work happening in the planet. It is needed, it is desired, and it is fulfilled through these gifts. So let's hold these gifts as we bless them with these words. I live in a universe of abundance as I freely and joyfully give all that I join in the divine flow, that all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly, and so it is. Thank you. Peace and blessings.
We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. We see all people, all beings as expressions of God. We see a world that works for everyone. Yes, we do.